Is it recording?
Yes.
Hey everybody, this is Michael Watley at NCGOP Studios, and welcome to another edition of our Chairman's Chat. Tonight we're very excited to have Judge April Wood joining us. April, hope you're doing well, and thanks for coming on the Chairman's Chat.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So why don't you take just a minute and tell all of our viewers all across the state about yourself and where you came from, what you're doing on the bench now, and why you want to run for Court of Appeals.
Well, I am Judge April Wood. I am a district court judge. I've had the pleasure of serving as a district court judge for the last almost 18 years. And one of the reasons why I am running for the Court of Appeals is because there is a distinct lack of judicial experience at the Court of Appeals. So, there are two trial courts in North Carolina. There's a district court and a superior court. And all the appeals that come out of those courts go to the Court of Appeals. And right now, of the 15 judges that are there are only 3 with any judicial experience, and only 1 has ever been a district court judge. So I want to take my knowledge and experience to the Court of Appeals for the benefit of all North Carolina. And as a district court judge, I handle a variety of cases. Of course, I handle criminal cases. Everyone thinks of criminal cases when they think of court, but district court also has exclusive jurisdiction over all family law matters. So I handle all the cases that involve juvenile delinquents or DSS cases where children have been abused or neglected, or child custody and support. And so I believe there needs to be hands-on judicial experience at the Court of Appeals, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I live in Lexington with my husband, who is also an attorney, and our 3 beautiful children. And I just am excited about this opportunity to run this statewide race.
Excellent. And I will say this, that we have spent a lot of time here at NCGOP over the course of, this cycle talking about how important it is for us to win back these crucial seats on the Supreme Court and Court of Appeals. And when we talk about that, what we're talking about is that we have a 6-1 Democratic majority on the Supreme Court. We've got an 8-7 Democratic majority on the Court of Appeals. And I think a lot of people intuitively understand that if the Supreme Court is that out of whack, that's a huge problem. But spend just a minute talking about the Court of Appeals and how important that is and why it really matters to the voters of North Carolina for us to have Republicans on the Court of Appeals.
So as I mentioned, there are 2 trial courts in North Carolina, the district court and the superior court. So most of the appeals that come out of those courts go directly to the Court of Appeals, with very few exceptions that the cases go directly to the Court of Appeals. Only a few go to the Supreme Court. And so the decisions that are made at the Court of Appeals are binding on the lower courts. And the Court of Appeals currently has 15 judges. And of those 15 judges, what happens is they divide, the chief divides them into panels of 3. And so they make decisions in panels of 3. And if you've got a greater majority of Democrats than you do of Republicans, then you are more likely to have more Democrats on the panels than you have Republicans. And so you've got more liberal judges making those decisions. And so we would like to have more conservatives on the Court of Appeals so that we can have a voice on those panels that are going to be making the decisions that affect the citizens in North Carolina, because those decisions that are made at the Court of Appeals are binding on the trial courts. And whether people realize it or not, it can affect them and their decisions if they ever end up in the courtroom.
And when we talk about needing conservative judges on the court versus liberal judges on the court, a lot of people look at Nancy Pelosi or AOC or Chuck Schumer and say liberal. They look at President Trump, or they look at, some of the recent judicial appointments that have gone there as conservative, or Ted Cruz or something like that. But when you're talking about a conservative judicial philosophy, and we talk about judicial judges, and conservative judges, what does that really mean? What is a conservative philosophy when you try and bring that into the courtroom or into a judgeship?
So a conservative judge is a judge that is going to apply the law as it's written. They're not going to carve out special interest or special decisions for special interest groups. They're going to look at the law and they're going to say, all right, this is the law as it is today, and I'm going to apply it as it is. A conservative judge is not going to make the law. They're not going to be activists. And so if someone wants to change the law, they really need to be talking to their legislatures as opposed to the judges, because the judges are supposed to interpret the law and apply it as it is written, as opposed to making it. And of course, a conservative judge is going to uphold the Constitution. They're going to make sure that all of our constitutional rights are upheld as they are intended to be. And we're not going to assert and make our opinions be what our decisions are, make our decisions be the law. What our personal beliefs are really don't necessarily matter. At the end of the day, what's important is that we uphold the law, because that's how you get justice, by treating everyone equally under the law and treating everyone the same. You can count on getting a fair and impartial ruling in the court. And so a conservative judge is going to be one that is going to give you the justice that people so much desire in the court system.
So when we look at the slate of candidates that we've got right now, we've got a fantastic slate of candidates on the Republican side, the conservative side, that are running for the North Carolina Supreme Court, led by Justice Paul Newby, who's trying to become the Chief Justice. And we also have a great slate of candidates that are running for the Court of Appeals. And so, talk about how it's been over the course of the last year or so, running as part of a team, really, as part of a slate that's looking to take over these important seats on the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court.
Well, I think that is wonderful that Justice Newby decided to put together a team this year, because obviously as a team, we can certainly cover more ground. This is the first time that we've ever had 8 appellate seats on the ballot at one time. I mean, this is an incredible opportunity for us to elect 8 conservative judges to the appellate bench. And we've not had that opportunity before. And so but these are statewide races. And so there are 100 counties that we have to cover. And as an individual, it's very difficult to cover 100 counties, no matter how many thousands of miles I've put on my car. It's a long way between Murphy and Manteo. And so as a team, we've been able to divide the geographic areas. We've been able to cover each other at events. If only 1 or 2 of us can go to an event, we can talk to everybody about everyone on the team, because the reality is all 8 of us, as Judge Berger said, are wearing the same jersey. We have the same judicial philosophy. We can talk about each other. We are very supportive of each other. And so we've got the ability to cover more ground and to generate excitement. And it's just been a pleasure. I hate that COVID has us locked down, but I'm excited that I get to travel again. I'm starting to travel again. And of course, we started this team effort last year at the GOP, the state convention, and we have been working very hard since then. So we pray that all of our hard work really pays off, but we need our grassroots activists to keep working hard for us.
Yeah, you talk about the COVID curtain and not being able to go to events. We're coming to you, to the viewers here all across North Carolina, live from NCGOP studios. We just had to have our state convention virtually, thanks to the governor and a last minute order that we got out of, the Department of Health and Human Services not to hold a physical convention. You've been on the bench for a while. You've been up for election a number of times, not necessarily statewide, but talk about how different is it for you as a candidate to not be able to get, into your car and drive across the state and meet with people the way that you're used to doing, but you have to do it on Zoom calls like this, or Facebook Live events, or just, picking up the phone and calling people instead of getting in the car and going to see folks?
Well, it's incredibly different. I have been a district court judge since 2002. And as a district court judge, I'm reelected every 4 years. Of course, our Court of Appeals and Supreme Court races are 8-year terms, but every 4 years I'm up for reelection. And of course, I had 4 counties I had to cover when I was first elected: Davidson, Davie, Iredell, and Alexander. And I thought that was a huge geographic area. And of course, now I have 100 counties. But when I was campaigning for the local office, I was able to go out there and shake hands and go to the barbecues and meet everybody and spread the word about the importance of these races. And now I find myself working full-time as a full-time judge, full-time mom, and also campaigning full-time. And I tell you, I make phone calls every day. I only got 15 today because that's all I could get in after I finished court, but I'm making a lot of phone calls. So it's very different to be connected to the phone than it is to be out there in person. Because I love being able to see people in person, because you're able to generate more excitement and enthusiasm if you do that in an in-person event. And so at this point, I'm really relying on the grassroots activists to generate that excitement and enthusiasm for me.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really, really important. You know, I want to switch gears for just a second. You know, everybody that we've talked to who's running, you know, statewide here in North Carolina during this cycle has remarked throughout the course of these chats about how important it has been for them, you know, to have their husbands, have their wives, you know, that are able to travel with them. And you know, to see, you know, what it's like to go across the state with them. So you've got a really cool guy for a husband. Tell us, how did you meet him? And you know, how was he lucky enough to get you to say yes when he asked you to marry him?
I do have a wonderful husband. His name is Jeffrey Berg, and he is a lawyer in Davidson County. And so, of course, we met at the courthouse. Little known that though, he's just a tiny bit older than I am, and I actually met him. My grandpa used to be the chief jailer in Davidson County for years, and before he retired, he was the chief bailiff. And so I used to enjoy going to court and sitting in court when I was getting ready to graduate high school and watch what was going on. And there was this really young, new, hot DA that was in the courtroom, and his name was Jeffrey Berg, and I just adored him. And of course, he didn't really give me the time of day. But after I finished college and finished law school, I came back to Davidson County and had the opportunity to talk with him. And of course, he asked me out. And as you know, we've been married for about 21 years, and we have 3 beautiful children.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, you know, you mentioned how big North Carolina is. And, you know, in addition to the 100 counties, I joke often that we seem to have 3 different time zones, you know, here in the state. And it really is a lot of ground to cover. Tell everybody what it's like, you know, to have, you know, Jeff there when you guys go around the state and you get to do the events together. You get the time in the car, you know, for you to be able to bounce ideas off of him, or to just get a gauge, you know, from somebody who's not running, who can kind of objectively look at the room and kind of tell you, you know, this is what's going on, and what's it like for you to be able to be with him as you're, you know, trekking across the state.
Well, he is just the most wonderful husband, and I am thrilled that we are able to have that time together. He is incredibly intelligent. He sees things, though, from a different perspective than I do, and that is very helpful for me. And I couldn't do this without his help and without his support. He's always there for me whenever I need him. I love it that he's willing to drive me wherever I need to go. I can make phone calls, or we're bouncing off campaign ideas. He helps keep me grounded. And so it's great to have someone there that can see the campaign from a different perspective, that sees it looking from the outside in, and just to give me some guidance that I need. And so I have been very blessed that Jeff's able to travel around with me when he's able to do that, and just to give me help and guidance. And he's a great person to bounce ideas off of. And he's actually one of the ones that helped me with a lot of my campaign handouts.
Excellent. Well, I think, you know, that really is a tremendously important part of almost every one of the candidates when we talk to about having their spouses be there, really to bounce stuff off and to have that voice that's not in the political, you know, vortex all the time, to be able to kind of talk like a rational person. You know, when we look at judges, you know, a lot of people, they don't necessarily focus on state judges. They pay attention to the United States Supreme Court, and they hear President Trump talk a lot about, you know, the effort that he's had to reshape the judiciary. You know, he has nominated and had over 200 federal judges, conservative lifetime federal appointments that have gone through. And I know Senator Tillis is very proud, justifiably, about his work on the Judiciary Committee and helping to get those nominees through the Senate. When you look at the role that President Trump has played on the federal level of shaping this judiciary, how important is that for the everyday person that doesn't necessarily think of our courts the way that they do a member of Congress or a Senate seat or a governor's seat?
Well, judges are incredibly important. And I think that people realize that now. All you have to do is look at voter ID. And we had a constitutional amendment. The people voted on whether or not they wanted voter ID. And Judge Loretta Biggs, who was appointed by President Obama to be a judge in our district, struck it down. And so it took one judge and the one signature to strike down that the will of the people. And so judges are incredibly important. You have to have judges on the bench who are going to be conservative, who are going to uphold the law, and they're not going to be activists and make the law what they wish it were. And so on the federal level, of course, we need a president who is there to nominate the conservative judges to fill those seats, and those are lifetime appointments. On the state level, we're elected, and at the Supreme Court and Court of Appeals, we're elected every 8 years. And so elections have consequences, and it is incredibly important to understand that whoever you elect to those positions are going to be there for a long period of time. And so it's important that you elect the right judges, the judges who are going to uphold the Constitution and who are going to uphold the law and not be activists and impose their will on the people, as opposed to, because the law belongs to the people, not to the judges.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I do think that, when we look at the presidential race, one of the most important issues that voters really need to decide is, what is the future of that Supreme Court going to look like? What is the future of the courts of appeals? The fact that President Trump has been able to put Republican majorities in a majority of the courts of appeals at this point in time, and 200 federal judges, that's really significant. I think, over the next couple of months, we're actually expecting to get to the point for the first time in over 50 years where all of the seats in the federal bench are going to be filled. And that's just an incredible feat on his part. And kudos to him for understanding early on in his campaign the significance of being the guy to make those picks and putting out a list of nominees that he was going to work through. I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to pay particular attention to as we go through this election cycle. And it's great, because with all of the attention that we're placing on judges, then that is going to allow the North Carolina judges and those judicial races for the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. People are really paying attention to it. I know at the state party, we hear every day about how important it is for us to support you and the rest of the judges on those panels. What's it like to really have these judicial races be such an important part of this election cycle?
Well, I think that people finally understand how important judges are. I've been a judge for almost 18 years, and I'm incredibly active in my community. I go to all kinds of events. I sit on numerous boards. I campaign all the time. I participate in the local community on a regular basis, and it never ceases to amaze me that even on the local level, people don't know who their judges are. And so it's great to see that people are finally very interested in these judicial races, and that they get it. They understand that judges are important, and they need to make sure they make it to the end of the ballot, because we're usually at the very end of the ballot. And that they understand that their vote matters and that their votes have consequences. And so, this is a great year for us, because for the first time ever, I think people understand that their vote really matters and makes a difference for the judiciary, and that the Supreme Court is at play, because at this point, we're 6-1 on the Supreme Court. And if we don't win and become 4-3, we're going to be 7-0. And I just can't explain to you how much that I think that the landscape of North Carolina is going to change if that were to happen. So I think people actually understand these judicial races are very important. They need to pay attention. And people tend to forget about judges unless, they get a speeding ticket or they have a friend who is involved in some sort of custody action or something. Then they start paying attention to the judges. But I think now people understand that it's really crucial that they support the judges in these judicial elections, and they get out and vote, and they tell people the need to elect conservative judges.
Yeah, and you talk about with the Supreme Court and the race that we've got Justice Newby, who is already a justice on the court. He's an associate justice, but he's running for the Chief Justice. Talk for just a minute about how important that Chief Justice position is, and that we really do need to focus on making sure that we get him into that slot, as well as being able to get Tamara Berenger and Phil Berger Jr. into the others. But how important is that Chief, Justice slot, and why is it so important that he would give up a nice, safe seat that he's got, as an Associate Justice to run for the Chief Justice?
Well, the Chief Justice is the head of the judicial branch. So the Chief Justice is the one who sets the tone and tenor for the rest of the judiciary. The Chief Justice is the one who establishes policies that are binding on all of us, trial judges. And the Chief Justice is the one who also appoints the Chief District Court judges, the one who makes the decisions about when courthouses are open and when they're not, and how fast we move through the system. And so judges, the Chief Justice is the leader of the judicial branch. And so we really need a strong leader in that position, a leader. The Chief Justice is the one who also, makes decisions about special committees and appointments. And it's just incredibly important to have someone there who shares our values, and someone there who is going to uphold the law and uphold the Constitution.
And I think Justice Newby is exactly the right temperament and the right guy. He brings the right, philosophy really to that race, which is going to be important. So you mentioned opening up the courts. We actually have had the state courts that have been shut down, and there's been, different reactions to that. But I think a lot of folks are very concerned about the pace of the judiciary and the fact that judges have not necessarily been able to keep up with case workloads. What's it been like to be a judge in the COVID era?
Interesting and fluid. So for a long time, of course, we were shut down, and we really weren't doing anything unless it was something that affected someone's immediate needs, due process. If we only dealt with juvenile cases, if the children were just coming into foster care. And so things were really not moving. And so I was in DSS court today. And so I have cases that should have already been addressed months ago that are just now being able to be addressed. And so those cases are lingering, and you don't get permanence for children when you aren't able to hear the cases, or parents can't reunify with your children if they're doing what they need to do in order to be able to reunify with them until you can get the case into court. And so their lives are kind of stagnant right now. And of course, because of the backlog, we are working extra hours now trying to keep up with the cases and trying to get everyone heard. We are doing, of course, social distancing, and we've got, the places marked off in the courtroom where everyone's supposed to sit, and we're doing specific times to keep everyone safe. But it is creating a situation where in those courts where the cases have to be heard, that they're taking, we're working extra hours to do that. And of course, in the criminal court system, there are no jury trials right now, so nothing's moving, and unless people are entering pleas. And so it has just been a very interesting and trying time trying to keep up with what is or is not going to be able to happen in the courtroom today because of the COVID situation. I had cases today where I really needed the parents to be written in to come into the courtroom, and there's a prison on lockdown until April 1st. I can't get the people here, but they won't do a WebEx. And so it really has been a challenging situation trying to make it happen.
Well, I tell you what, when you look at the Court of Appeals, and we've got 5 races this year, which is a full third of the entire Court of Appeals, the Republican slate is so strong, and you think about with Judge Gore in his military service, and you think about Judge Griffin and his military service, and having been overseas for the last several months, and Judge Carpenter, who has served on the State Highway Patrol. You've been a judge for a number of years. Talk about, what it's like for you, along with Chris Dillon, who's our only incumbent on the court, who's up this cycle, to work as a slate. And what does it mean to have that much experience in service to North Carolina, in service to our country, that we've really got a talented group? Tell the folks about, what it's like to be part of that slate.
Oh, it's amazing. And it has just been a wonderful experience. And as you mentioned, before you said everybody's name, you said judge. And so that is something that is unusual and something the other side can't say, because a lot of people don't realize you don't have to be a judge to run for the Court of Appeals. And all of our candidates are judges. Each and every one of us are current sitting judges running for the Court of Appeals. And so we have a wide breadth of knowledge and experience that we can bring to the Court of Appeals. Of course, Judge Carpenter brings with him his knowledge and experience as a law enforcement officer and as a Superior Court judge. And Judge Gore and Judge Griffin, they have been JAG officers. They've served their country in the National Guard, and they're district court judges. So they have a wide variety of experience. Judge Dillon, of course, has been on the Court of Appeals for almost 8 years since he's up for re-election. He's got the knowledge and experience in the business world also. So he's got some experience that the rest of us don't have, because he did real estate and did a lot of other areas of law. And then, of course, I've been a judge for the longest, almost 18 years now. So I bring a lot of knowledge and experience, and I'm a certified juvenile court judge. And so we have just an incredible slate, and it's great to be able to work with this team. We have regular calls with each other where we can bounce ideas off of each other. And I'm just so excited that we are offering North Carolinians the opportunity to have such an incredibly experienced, very dedicated team that they can be proud of and that they can vote for.
Well, it really truly is awesome to have, the slate, the great eight, the three on the Supreme Court, you guys on the Court of Appeals, and be able to move around, coming up with a slate card that's got everybody's picture on it is ubiquitous right now at Republican events all across the state. And we've got a buy-in for that team approach, which I've never seen at the party. And I know we've created the Judicial Victory Fund here, which is tremendously important to us to make sure that we get that funded and that we're able to move out with, the support for all of you candidates as we get into the field. So, and I'm glad you got a chance to, work with all of these guys and get to know all of these folks. It's really neat to see kind of what that aspect is. Want to switch gears back to a little bit of a personal question. So as you've been traveling all around the state, I know you get a chance to, to taste the barbecue. You've got Eastern barbecue, you've got Western barbecue. What city is it that you think has the best barbecue all across North Carolina?
Okay, the answer to that already. I'm from Lexington, the barbecue capital of the world. So of course, Lexington barbecue is number one.
Well, I got to say, every time I come up for an event, I look forward to it because I know that we're going to get the best barbecue that we can possibly have. And, I know that there's a little bit of a hometown bias in there, but I'm not going to say that you're wrong in terms of that. So, but I do want to ask one last kind of question here, which is you are running as a slate. There is a lot of support for the Judicial Victory Fund here at the party, but you're also running as an individual in your own campaign. And so, we've got a great group of patriots and Republican supporters all across the state of North Carolina. What can they do to help April Wood? What can they do to help your campaign and make sure that we get you onto the Court of Appeals come this fall?
So there's two very important things that people can do to help me. The first thing you can do to help me, of course, is to help spread the word. Keep sharing and liking my Facebook page. Go to my website, which is judgewoodforcoa.com. COA stands for Court of Appeals. So judgewoodforcoa.com, and share that. I'm on Instagram, Twitter as well. So help us spread the word. That is incredibly important and just invaluable. And the second thing you can do is to donate, because we certainly need money. I need money. My campaign treasurer, I'm sure, is excited that I'm saying this, but the reality is that we need help. We need funds in order to get our message, because right now we do have a presidential election and we have the Senate election and we've got all the Council of State. And so there's going to be a lot of advertisement out there, and we really need funds so that we can hit and target people. We need to be able to send out mailers and hit people through Facebook ads and other social media sites. And of course, we can't do that without your funds. So people say, well, you know, I don't have a whole lot of money because I'm in COVID, and I totally get that and I understand. But if you've got $5 helps me reach 10 households. If you've got $5,400, which is the max that you can donate, I greatly appreciate that, and I would appreciate your donation. And you can donate by going to my website. There's a little button that says donate on my website, and which is judgewoodforcoa.com. Or you can mail it to my campaign address, which is 1440 Wharf Road, Lexington, North Carolina, 27292.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you, April, for coming on the Chairman's Chat. It's been a great conversation, and we definitely support you and the other folks that are on the judicial ticket. It's going to be absolutely imperative for us to get these crucial seats on the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals back in Republican hands. It is one of our highest priorities here at NCGOP. You're doing an absolutely fantastic job of getting out around the state, talking to our activists, talking to our party leadership, and we absolutely are excited about the campaign you've been running and the campaign you're going to get to run over the next 4 months, and we're here to support you all the way. I also want to thank all of our viewers all across the state. Make sure that you go to April Wood's website, that you go check it out and you support her. And then make sure that you come back next week, because we will have another version of the Chairman's Chat, and we can't wait to see you then. Thanks, everybody, and have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.